Good morning, guys. Happy Tuesday. So here I am. We're going to be working today on some fun stuff. We're going to work on um, the. Hey, is this set for the wrong microphone? It is. Hey, that should work a whole lot better. I was messing with my microphone last night because I was playing No Man's Sky, and No Man's Sky is a great game. But I have to dink with all the microphone settings to get everything straight. So there you go. So today we're going to work a little bit on springs. I love working on springs. Springs is always kind of difficult for me because I have a hard time thinking up the jokes. And it's if I'm in a good place and we're in a good place as a society and everything like that, then I come up with great jokes all the time because things are just funny in life and stuff like that. Biggest problem that I have doing springs during times like this is I want to make jokes about coronavirus. And that's not funny. It's just not funny, folks. So there's that. And this is part of the reason why I don't generally do these. Generally, I'm having a hard time. You are not one big joke. But it's one of those things. It's hard for me to come up with something funny. So I have a little book that's right over here that I use for springs. I have a little book that I have now moved. So it's not right over here, which I use for springs. So as a side note, I spent this morning securing my camera to my monitor. And I wish I could show you what it looks like, but of course you need to see the camera to see the camera. But I have had this problem with my camera sliding off my monitor all the time because I'm using this is a normal computer. So I've got one of those little webcams that all it's got is a little hook to hook onto your monitor. And the hook's like this wide, my monitor's this thick, so it's like every time I put it up there, it just goes whoop and falls off the back. So what I've ultimately done is I had this selfie stick that I never use because I don't particularly care for selfie sticks or anything like that. And I had this idea to secure the selfie stick to my monitor and then secure the camera to the selfie stick. And I did that yesterday, and I don't know if it was the tape I used or whatever it was, but about halfway through the show, it just goes and fell off onto the floor. So now I have used gaffer's tape, or I guess electrical tape is what most people call this stuff, but gaffer's tape. I've used electrical tape and stuck it to the side of my monitor, and it seems to be holding a whole lot better. Do need to readjust it a little. So, anyway, back to springs. What I have done is often I will carry a notepad around with me and take notes as to jokes and things like that. That's not the right one. I have too many little notebooks. I have just come to this conclusion right now. I have too many little notebooks. Yeah, well, okay. So instead of preparing for the show today, I was doing a technical and gluing the camera onto my monitor so that it'll be stuck there so that it'll stop being in the way. So let's talk a little bit about springs. There we go. So springs, good morning, Brent. Springs I've got these templates that I have made in springs, which allow me to do whatever I need to do. I've got all of the possible options of panels that I could use, right? So I have all the panel options over here in a folder called panels. And usually Springs is a 4-panel strip. So I leave it on 4. This up here is to remind me of what my pin width needs to be. These are the right size to fit in these panels, roughly, give or take. Good morning, Raph. Good morning, Paul. Good to see you. So I'm explaining a little bit about what goes into making a spring strip. So these titles can be removed, and of course I number all the strips so that I know where we are. So I do need to check what the last strip was in 2020, because we're not in 2000. So I've been working on Springs since 2000. This is a 20-year-old strip. And it's funny because there's only like 240 of them. And if you divide that, it doesn't come out as that many per year. But that's okay. So the last one was 234. So this is going to be 235. So the first thing I'm going to do is change my number, because if I don't, I'll forget. The other thing I do is I change the backgrounds, the backdrops. I've got these different gradients. So I can make them yellow, or I can make them red. And there's a color code to this strip. And actually, it's all in the title up here. All of these are the title, the color codes that I basically use when I'm dealing with Springs. A while back, I set up a rule set for this, so that it could be, so that I can, like the color codes. I wanted to stay in the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Because I'm looking for a word specifically here. There's like when you paint a room, and you don't paint the room with just random colors. You only have a certain number of colors that you want to work with. And I can't think of the word now. Palette. That's it. It's the big words. Color palette. There's a color palette that Springs is limited to some degree. So, when I have a joke, I'll usually start right here underneath the 4-panel unit, unless I think it's going to be 3 panels or etc. But I'll start on the 4-panel. Color scheme, that's probably better too. Color scheme. Palette scheme, those are both relatively the same, right? Ha ha ha, I think I'm funny. Now, it may be hard to see, but I have this blue area right here, right? And that blue area is what I call the text safe. Not tech, but text safe. And it reminds me to keep the art down here in this area, unless I have something up here, right? So this particular strip, evil color schemes. It could happen. It could happen. Hello, Anna. We're going to be working on Springs today. Now, I don't usually, so I check. This is why I have this up here, as I check to make sure that I'm roughly the right pen width, right? Check to kind of make sure that this pen will work. That pen will work. Bleeds, margins, and trims, Kat, you're right. These safes up here are great for that kind of critter. But, I can draw up here if I want to. I just need to be sure that my text will sit right here. Right? That's all. Okay. So, Springs is a very simple strip, so I'm going to work around AR. Okay, AR. I'm going to not have the right tool selected. Let's just do AR is grumbly and mad and walking around, because AR spends a lot of time being grumbly and mad and walking around. The thing about AR is that he's mad, right? And he's tootling along, and he sees a rock. Right here, he sees a rock. And he kicks the rock. Right. Boink, 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 boink. Well, punt there. Right? Because it makes him feel better to kick rocks. It's funny to think that this character has come to represent my child more and more with every iteration. And then the rock swings around, has helicopter blades. And boops him in the head. Right? This is a simple two-step gag. Right? And then it flies off. And he's on the ground like that. Looking at us. And he's got the little spirals and stuff like that. Stars to indicate that he's been smacked. Little planets. Right. And this is where he says something plithy. Like, I admit, I didn't see that one coming. Right? So now I'll look over the piece and I'll go, well, what do I think? Do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I want rockets on there? Maybe I want rockets instead of a little helicopter. Well, no, the helicopter would be easier to see. But so looking at this joke here, now I say I've got 4 panels. And I probably, right, his antenna has issues. We'll fix that in post. Right, so maybe we want, right, he needs to make, the truth is his antenna probably should be backwards like this, right? And going this way. And then it goes boing when he kicks because he'll stop, right? Right? There we go. Oh, he's perpetually mad. So AR, the character AR, that's this guy right up here. When he was, Anna's right, because AR. AR stands for attitude readjustment. And that, he just doesn't believe that. He doesn't want to accept that. But that's what AR stands for. Everybody has, like, there are a lot of these characters up here that have just 2-letter, right? He could be augmented reality. 20 years ago when I invented him, augmented reality was not a thing. But it's funny because all of them have names that now are used in science fields, a lot of them. I mean, we got RC, which we've used remote control for a long time. So that makes some sense. But now in this era of technology, so many things use their same 2-letter designations for things. And a lot of these characters that started out with just not that style of, I started out with things like AR and RC and TB and things like that. And now they're all becoming real things. So anyway, yeah, everybody needs and if anybody needs an attitude readjustment, it's always AR. Because he's perpetually angry and mad and stuff like that, which is funnier now that I have. And that's maybe not a bad thing. I've made this little joke here with the Rock, but what if I were to start expressing some of the things that I find very funny about my kid getting so mad about games and things like that? Maybe he's a gamer. Maybe we didn't know. All this time, we had no idea that AR is a gamer. And that's maybe not a bad idea. Well, we have made an epiphany here. Why is AR mad? He lost his game 5 minutes ago. He always is mad when he loses games, I think I know. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, well, there's an epiphany. All these years I've been talking about my gamer friends who, and I use them as cautionary tales with my kid now. My gamer friends who have gotten so mad that they've thrown their PlayStations out the window and let the PlayStations fall to their death. Yeah, and all of these characters are different aspects of me in a lot of ways, which is one of the reasons why I've never thought of AR this way, because I don't get mad at games. But my kid does. And so I've just had I'm in a grumpy black cloud mood. I've had that every so often. Everybody does. We're all humans. And so he's been my black cloud mood individual. He's been the one who, whenever I feel black cloudy about today. But now that I think about it, that's not a bad idea if he were to express. I mean, when I created this strip 20 years ago, I didn't have a small child. So I didn't have an extension of me who is so like me, but then sometimes so different. Yeah, actually, Andrew, you and I are very similar on that one. I was taught to repress anger as well, so and not express it, and that is an anger issue as well. I agree completely. I'm not going to fault you on that one. I was taught not to express a lot of emotions, so there was a lot of that going on when I was younger too. So I also just sink my emotions, and that's not good. I don't have a an output or a way to express my emotions easily. So that's that. There we go. A little bit of that going on. Okay. So now that we've done this, I'm going to go on ahead and make sure I've got all the little details that the new AR has. This older AR doesn't have the little, he's got a stripe now on the back of his head, which is a small indentation on the side to give him a little bit more, just not quite as straight up obvious. So yeah, and I'm trying not to do that with my kid, you know? Let's not make this continue on. All right. Once you have a blue line in, and I'm pretty happy with this blue line, I think one of the things I might do, though, is take this panel and adjust by going lower with it. Because I want to make sure that all the action is pretty much on the same line, like down here on this line. So kind of made an action line down here. So I'm going to take all of these guys and move it down on the action line. And this will make it so that the action doesn't feel weird or strange. Because like now you've got, the only time you want it to bounce off this action line. Hi, we have the wrong tool selected. There we go. There we go. Move everything onto the action line, right? And then once we do, now it looks like the character is moving in motion. And down here, he's slightly below the action line, which gives us the feeling that something went really wrong, right? And we're going to have that sort of disconcerting feel because I'm going to put his butt on the action line, right? Or at least close to it. This is just Photoshop. Good old, bad old Photoshop. I have used Clip Studio Paint. The problem I've got with Clip Studio Paint is the tools are so radically different for some of them. Yeah, I'll move him in the first panel. I'll move him. The tools are so radically different in Clip Studio Paint that I'm having... There we go. I'm having issues getting acclimated and adjusted. But I was going to do that because Clip Studio Paint, I own my copy of Clip Studio Paint, which I do not own a copy of Photoshop. As we all know, I pay $50 a month for this and have for the past 4 years, which means that I have paid upwards of like $2,000 for Photoshop so far. And that's remarkably irritating to me. And at some point in time, I want to abandon Photoshop. But I can't at the moment. So there's that. So what we're going to do now, so I wanted to move to that, but you know what I just found out? They're going to start charging a subscription for Clip Studio Paint. So I'm going to end up spending $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 for Clip Studio Paint too. And I'm really irritated by this. Well, yeah, but that would require me to switch everything. That would be $3,000 worth of replacing computer. So that makes it a, well, now, which is worse, right? Okay. We're going to load up the background plane. We're going to spend 30 seconds waiting for my computer to come back to me. They really do. They need a hobbyist version that would be good with good for all of us. Okay, so this is just a background that I've been working on for a while. I've got a long time ago. I did these beautiful little background pieces here, and then this season I've added these little rock formations that were based off of background art that I had seen for a for a movie, and I loved it. And so I'm just going to take some of this plane here, and I'm going to go behind this panel, but it's not going to be able to go behind this panel yet. So the only thing I can do here is paste it on here and then swap it, right? Then I bring it down. I have it slightly larger than the panels because that way I can quote unquote zoom in. They do kind of look like they're dancing, don't they? So what we know on this is that this panel, everything stops. But this panel, he's moving, right? So what I want to do is make the background parallax. It's an old animation technique. And I noticed that this rock is lined up with this little like spire or whatever. So I'm going to take this guy and copy and paste it. And then if I parallax him, he'd be like that. So I kind of get an idea of what's going on here. And that would move him a little bit so it gets the feeling that he's moved. I didn't do it right, though. It does help if you do it right. You have to do it right. We'll take more than. There you go. Thank you. Take more than we need for this. You're not helping me, Photoshop. I'm just saying, you're not helping me. Okay, look over here. What have we done? What kind of damage have we done over here? Okay, you need to go away. You need to go away. Let's do this again. Okay. There we go. And then we copy and paste. And then you take this frame and remove it over like this. Right? And this is animation's parallax. All I'm doing here is moving the frame slightly, so the background moves a little bit. This gives the feeling he's moving just a little bit, because the frame's moved a little, right? Then we're going to take this frame, and it's going to be the duplication frame. I duplicate that a lot. Because he doesn't move from here, right? I mean back. There we go. And then I'll clear underneath it like this. Delete. And then we clean up all of our other little frames, right? Like this guy needs to be raised up. And this gives the feeling of motion. There we go. Right? He's moved this way. And the background goes this way, because that's parallax. Then he kicks the rock, but then he doesn't go anywhere. The rock stays, this left foot's planted. So even the foot's not planted, but nobody's going to really make that argument. Or at least I hope they wouldn't. So then the little rock comes up and gets him, and then he falls down. But these three panels are still in the same spot, so I don't need to move the background. So Alrighty. Now I flatten those down, and this becomes one unit. Right? So, here's where the magic happens, because there's totally magic. I'm going to the 4 panels. At this point in time, I zoom in, because I want to be as accurate as possible. I change my brush color. So now I'm on black. And then I just draw the line. Right? There we go. And I always start with the text bubbles, because if the text bubbles are wrong for any reason, that could change the artwork. So I always do the text bubbles first, and then I'll do even a text check. Right? The text is going to need to be read. It's going to need to be 16 point. And I actually have a very special font that I made myself. And this font is my own handwriting. Right? And let's do that, because he's mad. It's bigger. Right? So that fits. There's no issue there. Then I go over here, and I do the same thing. I check my bubble. Right? And here we can see the problem. However, I'm also noticing that I'm still set for 24 point. That's the wrong pin. So let's go back to 16 point. That one fits. So I'll widow orphan. There we go. And clean up the text bubble. But then once I put the text in, one thing I'm noticing is I have the guy problem that always happens when I'm drawing comics. I don't know what my problem is, but I perpetually draw at this weird angle like this. Everything I do heads up to the right. And I have done this for 25 years of drawing, and it drives me absolutely bonkers because, of course, everything I... So I am noticing that my bubble tilts. So we're going to go back through here, and we're going to clean up this bubble a little, because that drives me crazy. And I don't see it, really, until I get to the point where I've put the text in, right? So I'll do that, and I'll do that, and that'll clean that up. There we go. And you will see this in my art over and over and over. And just so you know, it's probably not a safe thing to point it out to me, because it makes me so mad. That's not true. You can point it out to me. I have done all kinds of weird stuff to try to prevent this one thing. I mean, there was one set of Springs Comics master pages that I did on pieces of paper, and I literally rotated the masterpiece, the master frame rate, the master, like the lines. I rotated them so that I would hopefully stop. I literally stop doing that. It doesn't help. Okay. And the cool thing is, at this point in time, I can do that, and it works, right? The bubble's there. Everything's good. It all works. We'll check this one, too. We're good. So the text bubbles are simple. They're not hard to deal with, right? You'd think tilting my surface would help me. It does not. I don't know. I am pretty sure that my eyes are very true to my lines, and for some reason, straight lines, when I draw them, must go this way. I don't know why. Because it doesn't matter whether I tilt or turn anything going the other direction. Even when I tilt it, my eyes will reacclimate to these lines here, and then I will still draw like that. I have no earthly idea what my problem is. I just go back to it. And then I think the truth is every artist has some weird, goofy, stupid that they have to deal with all the time. And really, honestly, if that's my stupid, it's not that bad, right? Okay, we're on the wrong color. That's why I put X here. Okay, so heading over here, we got go along here. And it's funny because I will probably be drawing crooked to my dying day. I'll be on my deathbed, and you'll say, "Can you draw one more picture?" And I will, and it would be crooked. Yep. Every artist has something goofy except David. David's the only one who does not make any mistakes. So, there we go. AR's legs are multi-segmented, but they're kind of a pain to draw that way. So, or on the sketch, so I leave that out of the blue line, and then I'll open up like that. Ooh, yeah, look at that. Don't do that. Jump back. Don't do that. All right. So Colton had said he loved the fact that I was so he loved the fact that I was so sure of my lines. And I'm sure of my lines, not because of anything other than lots of practice, right? I'm not like, there's nothing special about me. I mean, I'm a manga artist, and manga is about very secure lines. But even then, I have to keep going back into my lines and cleaning them up. It's not a perfect thing, but I appreciate that he said it. I mean, I work really hard on my line work, and I feel like my line work is nowhere near awesome, but he likes it, and I'm like, yay. It's absolutely serviceable. It does the job, but it's not where I would like it to be. Which is all right. I mean, I think everybody should have something that they're always working on, right? I mean, we all have skills that we want to improve upon. And give him a little bit of flex in his body here. Not a lot, because he's not a very flexible character. I mean, both mentally and physically. I'll put his antenna backwards like this and mount it in the wrong place. That's always nice. Here. It's right here. Bend this backwards like this. There we go. And then the thing is that you talk a little bit about like his knee being flexed quite a bit. And I assume when I built AR originally, or when I designed AR, a lot of it was based off of Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and from Silent Running. The little probes on Silent Running, which was a 70s movie that in general is not like the world's best movie, but it was really nifty. Or the premise wasn't that good. It's kind of silly premise, but it was such a wonderful science fiction movie. There we go. You'll never be perfect, ever. And nobody wants you to be. Perfect is irritating. Here we go. Get this in here. And we go like this. And we say boot. Work. Oh, man. No, boink. In comics, an open area. Yes, Silent Running is where you turn off the sonar on a sub. The premise of Silent Running is it's super future, and all of our trees and everything like that are put onto these 3 spaceships who travel around the solar system with all of the trees, because there's no trees left on Earth. Like I said, the premise is dense and stupid, but it had these, you know what it was? The movie was built around the concept of these models that were built for Battlestar Galactica. Because Battlestar Galactica had these really long spaceships that were greenhouse ships. Well, it fits in Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica had ships that needed to tootle away and go do their thing. And, they were running from the Cylon tyranny. So they needed an aggro ship that made total sense. But clearly some producer saw these aggro ships models and said, "Oh, we could make money off of this. If we made, it was just we were only 10 years out of Woodstock, so it was like we could make money if we made a movie about how we're going to destroy all of the plants on Earth and everything like that." And so they did. They made a movie. And the movie itself is pretty mediocre, but it has some fun things. And one of them is there were these droids that were there, and they were called Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And the droids were, there we go. The droids they're like the service droids. They went around, they had artificial intelligence, but they couldn't really, couldn't really, here we go, we need to make this more like this, right? Because it's weirder and wing, wing, ring, 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 right? He's gotten bonked pretty good. And then what I'll do is we'll make a little door on top here. It has opened and made a little propeller blade come out, right? We might want to zoom in a little, otherwise I'm going to have a hard time dealing with this. And a little door over here, like this. And we go like this. Indicate movement that way. We indicate movement this way. And then we give it a little circle to indicate that it's a helicopter blade. Which could look much deadlier. You'd think that if the rock's going to hit him, it'd chop him up with the helicopter blade, but that doesn't fit this comic very well. Though funny, it wouldn't hit this comic or make this comic go very well. Right? And so he gives a little line to indicate that he's moving around. And work. Right? And then we move around to the last frame, which is here. And this is the point where I need to kill my line down here. Right? And we have his foot right here. And his other foot right here. There we go. So Charles Schulz once said that it takes him 3 hours to think up the joke and 1 hour to draw the comic strip. I guess it's all should be in past tense, but it took him 3 hours to think up the joke and 1 hour to do the comic strip. And I see his wisdom. For me, I couldn't think of a joke this morning to save my life. So, this is not the world's most stellar strip. It's not the super funniest. And to some degree, I empathize with Charles Schulz's later years where he sat there for a long time going, and then didn't come up with jokes. And then people are always like, well, Peanuts was kind of weird in the last few years. I could totally see that. I mean, after a while, like one of the ongoing running gags in this is RC blowing himself up. That's a normal thing in this strip, right? And it's like, how many times can I go back to that well? And it's a difficult thing. So now we'll turn off the blue line and we'll go back through and just make sure that everything's attached because I'm about to color it all in. We want to make sure it's all attached. Otherwise, I just make my life miserable, right? So I totally empathize with Sparky on this one. Yeah. Oh, it's not a bad strip. It's a fun joke. I've made a couple of gags based off of poor AR and his horrible need to be grumpy and mad at himself. But I'm not saying it's a bad strip. I'm just saying it's obvious that I came up with this idea in about 30 minutes. It's not the world's best. It'll be funny. People will go, that's cute. And they'll move on. It's all good. You know what's missing over here? The little dude. He's not flying away. The helicopter rock. I want that to be more dramatic. And it's not as funny as it should be. It needs to be much more like, wow. And it's flying off. Wow. Off it goes. So, yeah, if I was political, I'd have... That's part of the problem. I've tried over the years doing political statements with this strip, and it doesn't work. These characters will not speak to me in politics. They won't. They refuse. They just don't want to do it. And it's so funny because I'll lose the voice completely of these characters. Get grumpy about kicking things, make some nostalgic commentary about, being a better person in life. Yeah, those all fit. But the moment I delve into politics with these guys, they stop talking to me. All of them do. They just won't talk. And it's so weird. Okay. When I do color, I duplicate the panels like this so that I can go in here and I'll just select his color, right? And that's true. It does make it more timeless. Woo! I mean, these guys don't have... I mean, it's even weird whenever you read like Peanuts. And in Peanuts, he makes random references to politicians that no longer exist, or people who are no longer in power, or, things like that. And it's like, as somebody who loves history, I know who these people are. But it's clear that certain Peanut strips no longer are viable. Really? Okay, let's get in here. I mean, all of the strips where he talks about Billie Jean, what's her name? Billie Jean, I can't remember, the tennis player. Now everybody associates Billie Jean with Michael Jackson, and they're going to stop associating it with Michael Jackson soon because Michael Jackson's going in a phase. So it's funny how, who's missing an antenna? Somebody's missing an antenna. I won't name any names, but it's him. Oh, no, he's got an antenna. There's his antenna. I just too close to the, Billie Jean King. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And I agree. It's low-hanging fruit. It's not worth it. The stars and the planets need to all be very bright because you need to see that he's gone woo, woo, woo here. And I might actually do that too to kind of just add to this here because now that I can go into color, I can. And then that'll work. Now, we should figure out what color this little rock is. He's probably a little red rock because that makes some logical sense. Let's see this little red stone rock here, like this. Kick it. And then it's going to come back and hit him. There we go. Bonk. Okay. So now we're at 10:55. And I've been working on this for about, 45 minutes or so. And I can totally see now why he talks about that. Why Sparky, of Peanuts fame, will do that. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. However, in a weird way, we have not saved this properly. So the last strip that I did, this is my saving, this is how my naming convention goes. It's the date, then the number. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with computer dating, but computer dating, I think I'm funny. If you don't put the year first, it'll sort it every one of these comics together as by their names. It'll sort them by the month. So you'll have all of your January comics together and then all of your February comics together. So you have to put 2020 first so that it'll sort all the 2020 comics first, then the month, then the year. So then I put the number in here to indicate that I'm at number 235. That's actually quite a volume of these guys. There's a lot of these guys out there. And it makes me kind of happy. Okay, I was talking before about how I had left a black and white version here. And what I'll do now is I'll go through and, this is hard to do. I'll go through and select all the panels, right? Like this. And then I'll hit Control-Shift-I. And that inverts it. And then I'll add a panel or a group here, and this is just going to be black, right? And all it did was turn everything that wasn't in there that might have a gap or whatever, right? Like that. I'll clear you guys, because obviously we need to clear out the other side here. And this just gives me some background work here that will be clear and easy to deal with. And I'm noticing some little errors here and there doing this. It's hard to see because of my guides where things are. Right? I can't see with my guides sometimes where they're off. For example, this panel in the background is off just a hair over here. So now I'll go back through and just fix a couple of things, just repair it. Okay, now that we've done this, we'll go through with the eraser and like clean this. Whoa, don't do that. Clean this up on that black line, right? Because it's actually not going to be a problem. Right? And check anything else like his helicopter blades, right? These guys need to be gapped, so to speak. They closed in when they shouldn't have. So we'll check for anything that has like closed up where it shouldn't be closed up, and we're all good. Then I'll switch to white and a brush, and we'll go in with his eyes. All right. A long time ago, yeah, I know, layer check. You're on the wrong layer. All right. Now that I've done this, I've gotten all of that squared away. Now I'll go here, and we'll do two more things real quick. The first thing we do is shadows. Shadows are 33%. I'll get a bigger brush. All right. Come on here. And I'll just do this. Right, like that. There we go. And we'll do this. And usually I don't like to shadow. I appreciate that you guys are checking the layers, but I think we were good. That's the right layer. This is this under layer, which usually... So here's what that does. I'll show you what that does. Over here, there's some gaps where the color didn't work, and you can see it there, right? And you see these gaps where Photoshop just decided this wasn't enough. So I add this black layer underneath it, and that just covers every hole. So that's all the holes. But then while I'm at it, I'll use that layer for his eyes, because that works, right? And that's what that back layer is anyway. You're just going to yell randomly because you're Andrew, and that's just a thing. I get that. I'm okay with that. It's totally fine, my friend. You do you, boo. Okay. Go through here. We're just doing this. Get the underside of his foot like that. And go across like this. And then this just makes them look like he's 3D, right? It's got, he's got some depth. And we'll go like this across his foot. And just wiggle, 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 wiggle. That gives us some of that pattern there. All right, under here. And do like that. And then I'll grab the ground, because he's on the ground now. And I'll grab the ground right here, where his foot was. And I'll grab the ground here. Obviously, I didn't finish up here. Right, and little rock gets the shadow too. Brent, you do what you need to do, my friend. I know you're here and I know you're supporting me. That's good enough. That's totally fine. And I don't blame you for looking for a new job. I think that's a fine thing to do. And then I'm just going to go through here and just make sure that everything's not bleeding out into the artwork. Normally I'd go through and trim it, but since I did shadows on the ground, it makes sort of a, I don't want to just delete everything in the way that I've done it before. You've seen me work on when I was working on like Andrew's piece. I'll go back through here and do shadows and trim them in. But this time I'm just kind of checking to make sure that's that way. There we go. Somebody's outside squalling there. So, okay. Moving along like this. What I like about the shadow is that he's round. So this guy is like a cylinder. I've never, trying to 3D render these guys is not funny. It's like most comics. They don't actually exist in a 3D space well. But I've tried to visualize. This is in great contrast to yesterday when we were doing deck plans. And I'm like talking about how accurately I like to be on my deck plans and stuff like that. In contrast to that is my comic strips, where these guys have no logic at all. So, I've seen your artwork, Paul, many times over the years. I love your artwork. It's good. But in contrast, I like to do that. Okay, one more layer. We're going to put in the highlights, right? Just like we did with my other comics. This guy is going to be at 50%, and we do an overlay or a screen. I can't remember whether it's screen or overlay. I think it's screen. Right? And since this guy is just shining stuff, like the top part of him like this, I can kind of bleed over a little. No, it's overlay. There we go. It's overlay. We do a little bit of shine through here. And then a little bit of shine like this. Boop. And then like right in the back of his legs, right? Because these are round-ish. Boop, boop, boop. And across the back there. And then right here. Right. And then right across here. And voila. right? And this, then we'll come back and we'll just go ahead and trim it down a little there like this. And then this doesn't need to be so dramatic. I mean, he's on the ground, right? And then rip, rip, and then like this, rip. There we go. Shiny butt. Yep, he's definitely shiny. Now, normally in most of my artwork, I would do a third pass of super bright shiny, like with just white. But as opposed to doing like this, where I've got kind of just this guy here. Oh yeah, probably should do a little bit right there. But with these guys, they're not that shiny. So there's that. Now, one thing I am noticing is, first of all, this should be multiply. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it helps a little. He doesn't have a shadow at all. Poor little rock. Even when we take him over, it doesn't matter on that last panel. Okay, so we'll flip this around, and we'll give him a little bit of shine too, because he needs to be shiny. It gives him some 3D capability here. There we go. And that's how we do a comic. Now I sign it, and we're good. I sign it before Brent says, sign it! Brent's been on me for this for a long time. All right. And he is absolutely right. And I feel like that's the wrong... What's the story? Oh, the brush is too big because I was doing shadows. That's why. Let's go back and do that again. All right. There we go. And it doesn't need to be that dramatic. Oh my God, Guy. You're so full of yourself. There we go. All right. Now, all of the layer check, all of these, because it doesn't matter whether it's on this panel or this panel. Usually I just put it on the ink panel, which in this case is that. So now we trim the top piece off because obviously all of that's copyrighted. So we don't need that. There we go. And that's a complete comic. So clear that. We'll say save as. We'll go into this folder and we make it a JPEG. And we just leave it the same name, right? And I make it about, I always do 10 on the quality. That makes it a 1.7 meg file. Then we do the thing. Control-Shift-E kills everything that's in there that's not on the layer. Then we say save as again. And JPEG. And there needs to be a small version of this. So what I'll do is I will name it -SM. Small. That's not what I wanted to do. First we did that. Then we say image size. Image size. Because the size of it right now, because JPEG's the easiest thing to load on onto Facebook, the size of it now is this, and it needs to be 1200 by 628. This is the standard size for Facebook, 1200 by 628. If you're wondering what all this junk down here and up here is all about, that's all so that it will fit on Facebook. This is the correct size for a Facebook post. This is 100%. Save as. So yeah, JPEGs just happens to be the easiest format. Here we go. And at 10 for that, I still get 335. That 335K is still a perfectly reasonable size for this. So there you go on that one. Making sure I'm still talking. There we go. Good. Okay. So there we are, 11 minutes late over 1 hour. Really, that's not that big of a deal. But one of the things that I really wanted to get to as an experience with drawing comics was to be able to get this down into 1 hour, into a 1 hour block. There once was a time where I was going to do these every day, and I had done a ton of these. Yeah, well, it is what it is. I mean, I'm broadcasting on Facebook right now, so it is what it is. I'm not going to make value judgments. I just know that all of you guys are coming in through Facebook right now, so it is definitely the place to reach people. So there's that. So that's where we are for today. That's interesting. Didn't notice that extra line down there. I missed a cut right here. But that's okay. It won't be a problem. In general, this is pretty easily done in 1 hour. So I chat, I talk, whatever. It takes an hour and 11 minutes. So there's that. But I did get this down to, and I think that some of you guys have been with me. David, I know, has been with me when I was at Perkins doing these on my Surface. And I have to admit, the Surface adds another 5 to 10 minutes to it because it's not. Yeah, that particular Surface isn't a pro, and so it misreads the pen every so often and things like that. So I have to go back and clean stuff up. But there you go. That's our comic for today. I'll be posting this on the Facebook here onto my channels in just a few minutes. So you'll see all of those things. Them were the good old days. So, okay, any questions before I move on? I don't have a lot of time left, so I think I'm just going to go back and finish working on the deck plans a little bit, because I've got a couple of spots I wanted to work on with that while I have you guys here. And then we'll call it quits at noon. So there's that. So we'll head back over. Yeah. And we'll get the Kitty deck plans loaded. Okay. So Anna and Paul, you guys weren't here before when we were talking about this. This is the hero ship for my comic strip, or my comic book. And I have to map this 3D model, right? That's the ultimate goal. But wanting to map this 3D model, I'm learning a little lesson from Star Trek. I want to go on ahead and get the internal spaces logical, so that when I build the 3D models of these things, like I built this 3D model already in Blender, but I need to map it. And when I do, the question's going to be things like, where are those windows on the ship? Yep, this is Bellatrix Rising. So this is the hero ship for Bellatrix Rising. This is the FS Kittiwake. And it's a corvette. She's not a very big ship. She's obviously like 4 decks high here. You're looking at like her side arrangement. So this is a side view of the ship. And we've got 4 standard decks. And I had done a design at one point in time. Let's see if I can find it open recent. Or maybe not. Maybe it's been too long now. Oh, here we are. I did a design, or a sketch of what I wanted the bridge to look like, right? We were here a couple of days ago, or at the very beginning when we talked about this. This is what I wanted the internal arrangement of the bridge to look like. It's 2 decks high with an overlook here. This is the captain's chair, and this would be the XO's chair, and then this would be the officer on the deck, officer on duty, officer on the deck. And they sit in this little alcove back here, and up here is all your science, tactical, things like that. They're up here. And then there's a spiral staircase on each side, which comes down to this bottom deck. And then up here, this is navigation, and this is sail control. And then there's a tactical table up here. So I had to convert that over into the logic of the ship. I'll turn this off because that's just confusing people. So taking that now, you can see that bridge deck in 2 different floors here. You've got, here's the bottom floor, and then here's the top floor. And we ended up with some interesting design things going on here. For example, the strongback cargo is just a cargo bay up in the front part of the spine of the kittiwake. Well, then we realized you can't get to it except through the bridge, right? And that seems like a bad idea. So we added this little like area up front, and then a walkway or a driftway, which goes down. There is one other thing that I suddenly thought of last night after we disconnected. This isn't an elevator. That's just an open shaft. It's just an open hallway. It's just an open hallway going down. You drift through it. You don't need an elevator. Right? Tactical. What? You calling me? No, I wanted Joe. Joe, oh, come on, Bob. Get Joe over here. Yeah. Anyway, but I suddenly realized that this is not an elevator. There's no reason for an elevator. You just have a driftway. We have control over gravity. That's a technology that this comic has. And this hallway is a great example of it. This hallway, is turned 90 degrees. So your head is here and your feet are here. As opposed to here where your head is here and your feet are here, Now, that hallway is turned 90 degrees because the truth is it's better. This is the wing of the ship. So you might as well be turned sideways because you're thinner that way. If we put a hallway this way, you'd have to have 2 meters thick worth of, bounce tubes. That's exactly right. It's a tube that just runs the length of the ship from up here down to here or over here. And since we have control of gravity, you can neutralize gravity in there, and the ship can just neutralize the gravity in the tube, and you just drift up it. That's going to be fun because I'm going to have a whole bunch of just people drifting up and down tubes and stuff like that. I assume that we will be, there will be a lot more discussion about right of way and things like that in a drift tube. So we did decks 1 and 2, and now we have placed the windows, which whenever we get to the outside of this ship, I'll be able to tell where these windows are. Now, deck 3 is the main deck. When I talk about the main deck of deck 3, one of the things I had thought of that would be interesting would be to make something that's relatively circular, maybe back here. Like that. Yeah, well, you'd need people going up and down at the same time. So you don't want to control the gravity. You might have somebody coming down the tube at the same time you're going up the tube. So it's the gravity, being gravity neutral just means that you can drift to wherever you're going to drift to, right? If it was reversed, then it would suck everybody to the bridge, and the guys that are going from the bridge to their quarters would be sucked back up to the bridge, and they'd be annoyed. So, damn it, this sucks. See, I had to wait. I couldn't leave that alone. Okay, so if we base the idea and the concept here, really, if we base a concept here, I had this idea. If you had like a galley, right? And then running off the galley in like spokes, you could have bunks, right? This would be emergency supplies. I mean, remember, the kittiwake doesn't spend a lot of time in space. I mean, again, Starfleet regulation. Okay. The kittiwake doesn't spend a lot of time in space. But she spends enough time in space that you want to be able to have sleeping bunks. But these are very much more like what you'd find on a yacht or something like that. I mean, they're not... Call it the eye. Yeah. But here would be, in the back here, it does kind of look like an eye. In the back here, this would be crew quarters, which would be very, very minimal, because they're just bunks, really. And then around the crew quarters, right here, would be all your machinery that takes care of the crew. Laundry machines or whatever you need. Probably not laundry. I don't know. Do they have replicators a la Star Trek? Probably. So you just generate all of that. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10. 10 times 3 bunks is 15. That's the crew complement of the ship. So that makes some sense there. So if you hot bunk everybody, now of course the officers get their own rooms, because officers actually, it's one of those things. Officers get their own rooms and everybody gets grumpy about it. I'm sure the enlisted do not like the fact that they have to triple bunk so that the officers can get their own rooms. But on the flip side, the officers might actually stay on board the ship when the ship is at port, and they may stay here all the time, even though the ship's at port. Now, I don't think, story-wise, I don't think that Chang stays on board her ship, but I think that has a lot to do with Chang being Chang. Hey, we've hit 100 messages today on this chat. Thank you, folks. We think of Chang as a character, and I don't feel like she's one to stay on board her ship because she's a goofball. Well, yeah, this is a Navy ship. This is a Navy vessel, so, or Navy-esque. So there's a lot of this is very Navy-like. But if you start from the process here, we're talking about the process of this. So this would be then, yeah, it's common. In this instance, though, I think, though, the bunks will just be Murphy bed type stuff. And you have your own bunk. Everybody has their own bunk. Because if we do this, what we can do is have 3 bunks in each one of these little alcoves, and then that gives us a storage for... You're really on the keel hauling thing, David. He's still on keel hauling. You're just saying, but keel hauling is definitely a thing. Okay. We're going to do some work on this deck completely because I'm going to have to mirror the deck on the other side, and I know that. So let's go on ahead and try to find her midline. About right there. That's her midline. Which means that this guy is needing to move up to here. There we go. Isn't that a good question? And I think a lot of it is, our space barnacles. A lot of it, you know what? I'm totally going to make a story now about space barnacles just because of you people. And I think a lot of it is that it's blue water navy that has always been sort of the style that science fiction authors have followed. And I think that's a lot of what's going on here is you've got a blue water navy style. And I mean, that's yeah, I think submarines are probably your best bet. Submarines. I mean, it's really, these are effectively tin cans, right? They're just tin cans in reverse. But you're right. This guy's effectively an aircraft. Right? So when we talk about this, where are we? There we are. We talk about this ship. She's effectively an aircraft. She's got wings. She's got flight surfaces. There's all kinds of stuff going on that makes this very much more like an Air Force aircraft, which is one of the reasons why I was intrigued that Space Force is going to be an extension of the Air Force. Because you're right. It should be Blue Water Navy, and we have all done kind of Blue Water Navy. Yeah, I mean, carriers, of course, always have flight ops, and that's a thing that just goes with carriers. And carriers have had aircraft since the aircraft have been on Navy ships for a very long time. What else is going on layer 7? Good heavens. Yeah, Andrew, I think you've missed one of the... I'll make you the air boss, yeah. Andrew, I think you've missed one of the earlier shows where we talked about the mission statement of the Kittiwake, because she actually has flight surfaces. These are wings, and these are tails. So she actually has flight surfaces. And so she that's why I was saying, I kind of the opinion that the Kittiwake might actually have, to some degree, a flight surface or an aircraft sort of thing. I will make you an air boss in this. Here we go. Okay. So, flip vertical. There we go. Now we can talk about... Well, and that's the thing, right? You have to kind of think about some of these things in a manner that's consistent with the story. Aircraft don't have Marines. But then, on the same token, warships don't fly through the air. Right, she can use space magic. She's got huge engines on the end of those wings. And, the cargo's not in the nose. The cargo's only upstairs. But that's the thing. Her engines are out on these pylons out here. And really the flight surfaces just make it so that the engines don't have to work as hard. But she also has these forward canards. Yeah, of course she's going to need space magic. She's going to need her engines to run. But there are a few things. One, these engines likely make a ton of noise, right? So you don't want to be throttling them up at full space speeds in atmospheres. Space engines don't treat planets nicely. And going to need a bigger boat. Space engines don't treat atmospheres nicely, so the space engines are going to have to tone down in flight, in atmosphere. So, I mean, because obviously, you turn on the nuclear fusion, right? What harm could turning on a fusion reactor in an atmosphere do? So she's going to have to tone back her engines a little when she gets into the atmosphere. Otherwise, she's going to deafen everybody at the very least. At the most, she'll set fire to the atmosphere. So flight surfaces make it so that they can tone the engines back. And that's all. I mean, certainly she could just land. The Rocinante just lands. And that's just the way it goes. And that's certainly a viable option. Okay. So we've got some of the things that are going into the wings. Both wing hallways to the engines and access points are in. Well, fusion's just a lot of power. So being able to pump up the volume, jam here. Being able to put more power into the nuclear fusion of the ship is extraordinarily convenient. Right? I'm going to move this over here. Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, somebody had posted, some famous science fiction artist or author, and just like 3 or 4 days ago, I saw it go through my quotes feed and said, the fact that in stories more planets aren't completely devoid of life is a sign that humans are much more restrained than we give them credit for. Or at least the fictional humans. Because you're right. All I got to do is... Well, even, Andrew, to refer to that, I mean, even when the Serenity... I mean, she was doing that was one of the things that they used in Serenity, or in the episode Serenity, was blowback, right? That's exactly what they did. They turned on the fusion reactor and nuked the atmosphere, right? Spaceships are a level up. It's what was it? Somebody said it's like when you have spaceships in atmosphere. It's like driving your truck through your house. It's just not designed for that. You're an entire level up. So you've got to think in that. Well, that didn't go over well, did it now? Just so that's what that. So for the benefit of this story, there's some concessions that they're making towards the fact that this ship sometimes travels into atmospheres so that it won't make it, so that they're just destroying everything. And that carrot and the stick drive would just ruin an atmosphere. It would ruin a planet and just suck the planet in. So they can tone it in and tone it out. By the way, if you're wondering how that works, it needs 2 projectors, one here and one here, so that you can plot the XY axis and Z axis of the black hole that you're presenting in front of the ship. Okay. Back to deck 3. We're in here on deck 3. So these are our bunks. They're berths. And this is our common area right here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to design in right through here and here and here. And just put it around the outside of these bunks. And this is life sciences and engineering control, or life sciences and atmospheric control. It makes sense that it's closest to the bunks. This is not going to be a quiet ship, realizing that no matter what, it's directly above these bunks, right, guys? Directly above these bunks is the launch bay. So, yeah, I've often wondered, what do you do when you, and this, you're right, this is definitely a story idea, and don't think I'm not going to explore it. What do you do if you let civilians have this technology? I mean, technically speaking, we very rarely have people drive their trucks through the middle of buildings. It happens every so often, but it doesn't happen all the time. And, I mean, we have had terrorism that uses bombs in trucks. And so you would have to deal with this as a reality. There's a certain amount of reality to the fact that this is a doomsday weapon. The carrot and the stick drive is very much a doomsday weapon. And once civilians have control of that, you have to be able to use that. And we're talking about, 300, 400 years after this weapon, or after this drive was introduced. So it's been technology for a long time, right? CERN has entered the chat. I mean, there's no way the military can hold on to this for 300 years. There's already a technology that they're dealing with in this story that is a problem. And I'm going to kind of be vague about that because it's part of a plot point in a couple of the stories. And I really would like to make that just to be a surprise and not actually have, that out there where you guys have to deal with knowing that particular thing. But, yeah, I mean, when I work on this here, kind of doing this here, I'm just cleaning up this. I don't know why I'm doing, because I'm talking about the technology that's here, and it's somewhat disturbing. Okay. So back here is life sciences and life support. Which includes food and foodstuffs, right? I mean, that's what's back here. And we'll put food. So, originally I thought the galley would be up there in that forward. Yeah, actually, there. I can, except that, hate to say this, but if you look, I mean, this is this. That's both. And the new catapults on the new Navy ships are electromagnetic. They're railguns. So they're not steam anymore. Which I find extra fascinating. But I find technology extra fascinating. So the fact that they're railguns effectively is awesome. And I'm just looking forward to seeing the first planes pulled off of a railgun. That's going to be great. We're like, they shot him out of a railgun. We all excited. So, new cats are railguns. I don't know what that means. Other than if, I mean, right? High pitch. Well, I don't know. The other thing I'm thinking is like, if your cabins are under the rail guns, and the rail guns go off, does every USB drive in your entire room get erased? I mean, these are the things I think of all the time. Like, right? It's like zap. Oh, my computer's wiped clean again. But we launch ships or we launch fighters. You know, I now these are all the things that keep me up at night. I'm just saying. I'm always thinking this stuff through. I feel like this guy should be a little bit more. That. Okay. All right. These things that I think about are this is so great to have you guys here to just chat with this idea. Yeah. Yes, it's your hard drives that I'd be more worried about. But the joke wasn't as funny. The hard drives is not as funny. So, anyway. Well, I would say, oh man, it's the military. They'll definitely not put anybody's lives at risk on technology like that. But I've known a number of people who've worked on nuke submarines, and just saying, the Navy's not one to sit there and say, gee willikers, maybe you've had too many rads in your life. So, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're safe, but I wouldn't say that they wouldn't be. I mean, obviously, if you kill off all your sailors launching airplanes all the time, then probably you're not doing it right. So I would assume that they have done at least short-term analysis of how much danger that is. Right? Yeah, if rust could be pulled out of your blood by magnets, we'd have a whole lot less rust. Depleted uranium rounds are awesome. I'm just saying, we're back to talking about A-10s. Yes. That is true. And any sailor that was at Bikini Atoll, which, by the way, did anybody else notice that Bikini Bottom in SpongeBob SquarePants is a direct reference to Bikini Atoll? Not saying, but I'm saying. Right? Warthogs are the best. I love the fact that they have those huge engines just to keep thrust when they fire that gun. It just makes me happy. A certain amount of happiness there. Right? SpongeBob is a nuclear-infused sea sponge that gains sentience. I'm just saying. All right. So, there are a few things that I think we would find back here. One, there would be an access door. Probably at this point here, where we would have a large format access door to load all of your foodstuffs and everything and resupply this vessel. So here's our large format access door. And this door allows us to load and unload things into this back cargo area. We did say that the spacesuits were sealable and space capable. Or their uniforms were sealable and space capable. The fabrics that they make at this point in time would be sealable. And the seams that they have in their uniforms would be sealable. So, we know that. Okay. Now here's where things get wonky. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have our markers. These guys need to be moved in. So these guys, that's not what I wanted you to do. It's like Photoshop has to do the wrong thing every time. These guys represent 2-meter blocks. So there we go. Well, that's Mariah. She'll have to wait, and because I'm still broadcasting. So hang on real quick, guys. I swear. I am out of space on my computer. I'm out of space on my phone. And I've got a new phone which has twice the size of, or twice the space of my old phone, and I'm already out of space on it. Are you trying to sell me something new? Casting. Is this urgent? Question mark. Boom. Okay, back to work here, guys, while she replies back. So these are, these two here are 2-meter blocks, and they represent 2 meters by 1 meter. You guys are goofy. You're still talking about hemoglobin. Although, Andrew apparently is talking about hemogoblins. I love hemogoblins. Hemogoblins are those are the worst, man. Those are the worst. Okay, so looking at this spot right here, getting into this section of the ship is complicated and not easy. Because gravity goes down right here and then goes this way down right here. So the only way to actually do this is they're going to have to come over here to the hallway, the end of this hallway, and then they'll lay up against the wall here and then roll over. When they roll over, then they roll over to here and then they stand up. So let's go ahead and indicate this, right? I'm actually going to duplicate this because everything that happens here is going to happen. There we go, like this. It needs to happen on the starboard side too. I want to draw hemogoblins. That seems like a ridiculous thing. I'd love that. That'd be so funny. So this is the lay down pad, right? So you lay down with your back against here, and then you just roll over there. And that's the way to deal with it. It makes your stomach all queasy, and it makes you goofy feeling for a little bit, but it works. So we'll do that. And then we'll give it a little bit of a curve like this. And then I'll erase through here like this. There we go. That way, when you roll off of this going the other direction to transition back in here, things aren't as weird. Although that's a good question. How do you transition back, right? Because now you're standing here. You're standing, so it'd have to be the same thing. You'd have to roll back this way. So there'd have to be a pad for returning. Going this direction. And then I will take the eraser and I'll do this. Variable gravity area. Okay. This is going to be one of those wrong layer again. I have to do this in the wrong layer, didn't you? Just had to do it in the wrong layer. Where were you guys warning me about the wrong layer this time, huh? Okay. Heading out into the hallway this way. And then we'll put the variable gravity stripe there. And the variable gravity stripe here. Like this. There we go. Okay. Now we've got this under control, I think. All right. Layer check. Beer check. Okay. So the significant other just forgot that I'm broadcasting, and so she wants me to call her back later. And that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the rest of Deck 3. Knowing that we've got all of life support controlled and dealt with back here across the strong backs between the wings, now let's talk about what else is here. We'll need staterooms, but let's talk a little bit about the most important piece of this particular thing, and that's the pilot house in the front. Right? Because we do have this pilot house, and we need to figure out where we are on the pilot house. Okay? So the pilot house up here, this is for steering the ship in different kinds of, not only in any time that it uses either its flight surfaces or when it's in close range, there'll have to be some weapon stuff here somewhere. I haven't even put in any weapons at all on her. So she doesn't even have any weapons. Like, she has no torpedo storage. She has no lasers or grazers or blazers or nasers or anything. She has nothing on board to do weaponry yet. So we'll have to put in weapons rooms. But, and the reason why I'm being cautious about weapons room is you have to think about that. Right? Think about the USS Arizona. Weapons rooms, if you're carrying munitions on board, you want them to be armored and protected in some way. Not like the Arizona wouldn't have been blown up anyway, but it's still like a thing you want to keep in mind. Munitions should be centrally located and travel by travel belt out to a point. I mean, this is one of those things where I was like, I can see that the Enterprise was cute and pretty by putting the torpedo room on the neck, but the truth of the matter is, if you manage to get a good lucky shot into that neck, then it's going to blow all of those photon torpedoes right at the neck and separate the saucer by accident. You know? I mean, that seems like a bad place. I know that some of the deck plans show that it's in the strong back of the secondary hull where all those torpedoes are kept, but they come from the top. We showed that in the movie. They come from above. So either the torpedoes are being loaded around the torpedo room, at which time the torpedo room is surrounded by photon torpedoes, or, I mean, obviously this is one of those, the people who built the set thought it'd be cool to show a torpedo being loaded from above. Totally cool with that. Looks awesome. Practically, probably not a good thing. You've put all of your photon torpedoes into the neck of the ship. So we'll worry about that one tomorrow. This area here is the pilot house. Right? So this is where we are so far with our deck plans and thinking through the logical space of the Kittiwake. And you guys have been here with me this entire time. Isn't that cool? So, okay, well, I will see you all then tomorrow. We'll be here again at 10 o'clock local time, and we'll continue on with this. I may do another thing for the first hour tomorrow as well. I'm trying to split the hours up, so I've got 1 hour. So you can technically steer the Kittiwake from the bridge. So the CIC. So from back here in the CIC area, which we've talked about before, you could technically steer her from that. The pilot house in the front is just going to have a bunch of windows so that the pilot can sit in the pilot house and steer and go, oh, yeah, okay, wait, we've got to, that's the whole idea. So it will be fine. I'm not terribly worried about that. If you take out the pilot house, right, it'll have a waterfall and grass, and everybody just likes to sit up there in the pilot house all the time and just relax. Now, the pilot house will be for, like, all kinds of stuff. Like, the ship is powered down and just waiting for people to come back. And, this is where all of our heroes are running back to the ship as fast as possible, going, hurry, get us out of here. And the pilot guy is sitting in the pilot house just reading a book, and he's looking at the windows and sees all of our heroes running around. Oh, God! And puts the book down and starts powering up the ship. That's what that's all about. I appreciate that, Carolyn. Thank you so much. That probably looks. I'm working here. I appreciate that. Thank you, Carolyn. I like doing this. It gets me working. Gives you somebody to talk to. Gives me somebody to talk to. I like this. This is a great thing. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock, guys. And in the meantime, have a good day. Have a great evening. And do well. Do well out there. I'll see you later.